Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to Empowered Voices. This is your weekly speech therapy session with SLPriya. If you are new here, I am a speech and language pathologist with almost a quarter of a century of experience, and I wanted to kind of go on a bonus path and provide my wealth of speech language pathology expertise to the general public. My idea was to weekly put out a speech therapy session that covers a range of topics. And every week you'll know in the title what we're covering that week. So hopefully, if that resonates with you, if it's something that you feel like you can connect with or that a loved one can connect with, I am here for that purpose. Again, my name is Priya. I am a speech and language pathologist now practicing for 23 years. I practice in the great state of Ohio, but I have lived sort of all around and have practiced in many states, many cities. My expertise mainly falls in the what we call adult neurogenic sector. So nursing homes, hospitals, home health care, outpatient. But I also have dabbled with schools. So I do school systems, telehealth for schools. And so the idea here is that speech pathology really does have quite a range of areas where you might connect with an impairment or someone that you know is going through something. And I wanted to provide a free weekly bonus session or an area of knowledge where you might be able to take away something from that and give it to yourself, to a loved one, wherever it might be for you. And so those of you that don't know, speech pathology covers traditional speaking, your articulation, as we call it, or speech clarity, language production, comprehension, but it also covers a lot of what we call cognition, or your memory, your problem solving, what some of you have probably been familiar with as the term executive function. And lastly, and a big area for us is swallowing. Sometimes you don't know that a speech therapist covers swallowing deficits unless you or a loved one is going through it. And all of a sudden a speech therapist pops up and, asks you how you're eating and drinking. And unfortunately, sometimes changes the texture of your diet, your liquids, that kind of stuff. So I'm hoping with these weekly sessions, they can be as interactive as possible. I want to provide information. I want to give recommendations. I want to give compensatory strategies. Remember that these are general, and that I'm always open to questions. You can leave comments. We can speak over email or direct messaging if you have specifics, but absolutely leave a comment if any of these things resonate or you have specific questions. But always remember that too, always, those of you that have done speech therapy in the past or are currently receiving it, always go with what your current therapist is doing. These sessions are meant to be a bonus, really, right? To be an additive to what you're already getting. Or if it's something that is new for you as well, you could take it as preventative measures, or it can be in conjunction with a practice that you're already doing. It's really just, like I said, as a bonus, and hopefully some weekly fun in what we talk about. So this first week, this first episode, we're going to cover a little bit of cognition in that realm, specifically memory. And with memory, I think that's the kind of thing, the one thing that really drives people to want to practice or they want to address, because that sort of forgetfulness, typically age-related, sometimes not, sometimes, caused by medical issues, I think gives people the most worry, right? They're like, oh my gosh, I walked into a room and I can't remember what I did, or the doctor gave me a time and a place and an appointment and all of that, and I can't remember it. And I think, we start to sort of panic a little bit in our voice, and we're like, do I have Alzheimer's? Do I have dementia? And none of those things are being downplayed, none of those feelings. It's more about those things happen to everybody for causes, like I said, age-related, other sort of just forgetfulness issues, but also some very serious medical diagnosis can cause those things. And so I'm here to sort of give you strategies and ways to work around it to make life just a little bit easier for you if you do feel like you experience that or you know someone that does. So for this very first session, I think that the easiest and the most commonly sought after, area of focus tends to be our cognition with specific regard to memory, right? And so if you ever have met a speech therapist, maybe in a hospital, maybe in a nursing home, or like I said, a loved one has, we're the ones that come in and will say, we'll ask questions. We'll say, what is the date today? What day of the week? What year? Remember these 3 words. And a lot of times the resident, the patient, but also the family member is playing along. And I hear from a lot of people, they'll say, boy, I couldn't even remember those words, right? They're not a test in a sense that if you can't get all the words, there's definitely something wrong, right? I think the blanket idea is that you can give yourself some practice. You can give yourself an area in which you're like, wow, I couldn't remember, 2 of those words. Why? Was I just not paying attention? Did I just not organize the information? Or did I truly forget them? And so we're going to kind of delve into specific areas. We're going to go over a lot of specific strategies. And those will come in the coming weeks. But we'll take a week, we'll cut out a time each time, and we'll go over certain strategies in that episode in order to practice memory. And we're going to kind of talk about like what severity looks like and, how we can maintain our level of independence at home or a loved one can at home. If you are someone like me, you have elderly parents, you want to sort of be able to give them independence, but you also are sort of keeping an eye out and looking and seeing, okay, are there things I need to be concerned about? Again, things, a little workaround, right? Things that maybe you can sort of tell them without saying, hey, sit down for your weekly speech therapy session. Instead, you can kind of work it into the knowledge that you've gained through these free YouTube sessions. So if it is something that you think that you might like, please subscribe, please leave a comment, like the video. Again, these are just fun weekly sessions that they cover a myriad of things with regard to speech therapy that you might just be able to take in or have, sit down weekly with me and have your free speech therapy session. For this first episode, I am going to give you 3 words. And what's going to happen, obviously, it's only interactive as it can be. I want you between now and next Tuesday, I want you to remember what those 3 words are. But what I want you to do specifically is I want you to tell me in the comments when we return next Tuesday, how did you do that? What was your strategy for remembering those words? I'm not going to give you any here. We're going to talk about them next Tuesday, but let's see how you do on this first session. So this first session, just a general introduction to speech therapy, and weekly we will do a specific topic. We will cover all areas of speech therapy eventually. It's going to be cognition, aphasia, speaking, and swallowing, and we'll switch back and forth, and you'll know by the title of the session what we're working on that week. So for today and for next week, we are going to cover memory, and here's your introduction. I want you to remember these 3 words: tulip, like the flower, tulip, purple, the color, and glass, like a water glass. So your 3 words to remember for next Tuesday are tulip, purple, and glass. I can't wait to hear what kind of strategies you use. I can't wait to hear if you remembered all 3 1 or 2 out of 3. And we're going to get into the nitty-gritty about how we can help ourselves remember things a lot easier. So like I said, please subscribe, like the video, and definitely leave a comment. I'm really excited to hear from you. And I will see you next Tuesday with your weekly speech therapy session. And we're going to go over memory and cognition. Until then, have a great week and happy speaking. Bye-bye.